So let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with this. Who are you? Underneath it all, who are you? Not your name, not your age, your Myers-Briggs type, your star sign. Who are you when no one is watching? When you're alone in your room, stripped of expectations, roles, of identities, who is the person that is staring back at you in the mirror? Because here is what I've learned as a love and a self-esteem coach. Most of us don't really know. Why? Because we're too busy wearing masks. I want to tell you my story with masks, specifically the Joker's mask I wore all the time. So let me take you back just for a second. Growing up, wearing a mask wasn't optional. It was survival, right? I didn't wake up one day and think, you know what? I'm going to pretend to be someone I am not today. Sure, obviously there was the childhood imaginations of pretending that you were a pilot or you were a fireman or whatever the case may be, but not in a way that deeply impacts your identity and how you navigate the world. No. Life taught me that being myself was dangerous. And I know dangerous sounds super dramatic. I get it. But imagine being a kid and realizing that just existing as you are makes you a target for bullying, for exclusion, or punishment, criticism, judgment. And I'm sure many of you guys can relate to this because I'm sure many of you did experience that growing up. That is exactly what it felt like. So I did what so many of us do. I became the jokester. If I could make everybody laugh, they wouldn't look too closely. If I made fun of myself first, no one could beat me to it. Nobody could make fun of me because I had already done it myself. If I was the funny guy, then at least I belonged, even if it was only because I entertained them. These are all things that I think a lot of us experience, but not a lot of us take the time to really unpack it after the case. But that wasn't the only mask that I wore. I also wore the mask of masculinity. I did all the manly things that I can think of. I did the sports, I did the clubs, I did the cracking jokes about girls. I dated women in high school. And to clarify, I identify as bisexual, so I'm perfectly comfortable dating men and women, but the side of myself that desired to connect with a man on a more intimate level is a side of myself that I had to hide. So I focused all of my attention on my straight side, right? So I focused on keeping my voice low, keeping my wrists stiff, anything to convince the world that I was straight. And you know what? On paper, I had a pretty good experience in high school. I still have friends that I talk to today from high school. I mean, 20 plus years later, aging myself here, but it is what it is. I had good grades, theater performer. I had some of the main roles in some of the musicals and the plays, sports achievements, leadership roles. I was prom king. So again, on paper, everything seemed great. Everything looked great. But under all of that, there was this quiet whisper, right? What would your life feel like if you weren't pretending half the time? As a coach, I say this every single day. Nearly every client I work with, especially gay and bisexual men, is wearing a mask. Sometimes they know it, sometimes they don't know it, but it's there. Because here's the deal. Masks keep you safe, but they also keep you hidden. They protect you from pain, rejection, and humiliation, but they also protect you from love, intimacy, authenticity, and connection. They keep you safe. Yes, 100%, but they also keep you small. So why do we wear these masks in the first place? Because at some point, they worked. They helped you to survive that toxic household. They helped you to avoid bullying in middle school. They helped you to fit into that friends group. They helped you land that job or impress that date. But what helped you survive back then is keeping you stuck now. So let's break down the most common masks that a lot of men wear in the gay community. The first one is the mask of perfection. So I want you to raise your hand if this one hits home. Or actually, you know what? Don't raise your hand, because if you're in a public place or you're driving or whatever, people might think you're a little bit weird for like randomly raising your hand. So just in your mind, raise your hand, right? Society tells us we need to be perfect to be loved. We have to have a flawless body. We have to be successful at our career. We have to have the beautiful apartment, a curated Instagram aesthetic, witty Tinder bio. And you can probably relate to this because oftentimes you hear the stereotype that like if you go to like a gay dinner party, it's the best dinner party that you've been to. If you go to a gay man's house, it's going to be the most curated, well-organized, beautifully decorated home. There is a level of perfection that we crave to attain so that we feel valuable. And within the gay community, that pressure is often magnified because not only are we trying to prove our worth to the world, we're also trying to prove it to each other. But here's the reality. Perfection is a prison. When you strive for perfection, you sacrifice vulnerability. When you sacrifice vulnerability, you block connection. And when you block connection, you end up feeling alone, even if you're surrounded by people who admire your curated image. Nobody can connect deeply with somebody who is always performing. Perfection might win you praise, but it's never going to win you love. The second one is the mask of masculinity. And a lot of us wear this, right? And a lot of us have heard the same phrases forever. Be a man. Don't be too emotional. Act straight. Be more masculine. Does any of that sound familiar to you? Because it does to me, right? I experienced that quite a bit. And we're taught from a young age that masculinity equals strength. It equals stoicism and emotional attachment. So what do we do? How do we handle this? How do we navigate this? We suppress our softness. We hide our fears. We bury our sadness. We walk around with puffed chests and clenched jaws trying to prove that we are real men. But here's the paradox. By trying so hard to prove your masculinity, you disconnect from your humanity. By disconnecting from your humanity, you block intimacy. And by blocking intimacy, you stay lonely, even in relationships. Real strength is not how manly you look. Real strength is how willing you are to show up, to be vulnerable, to love deeply, and to risk being hurt. In my opinion, that is the definition of a man. Somebody who has the ability to be that open and that candid and that authentic about themselves, who they are as a person. Your emotions are a part of who you are. And if you have tried to hide them for years and years and years, stop. Stop doing that. That's part of what's probably stopping you from being able to connect with somebody on a deeper emotional level. And it comes out in many different ways. And that's why so many of us wear different masks. The third one is the mask of confidence. And this one's kind of tricky because confidence itself isn't a mask, but fake confidence is. So have you ever met someone who seems overly confident, right? They're always loud. They're always unbothered. They're super dismissive. They are quick to dominate a room. Chances are that's not confidence. That's fear in disguise. Real confidence isn't about projecting invincibility. It's about showing up fully, flaws and all, and owning it regardless. For me, confidence looks more like vulnerability without fear of judgment. It looks more like compassion without fear of weakness. It looks like courage to speak your truth, even if your voice is shaking. And I want you to remember this. Confidence isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being real. Being real with yourself, being real with everybody else around you, and not allowing yourself to partake in this false sense of being, right? The fourth one is the mask of independence. That really strong desire to be independent and autonomous. And let's talk about this because it runs deep for many of us. So many gay and bi men grow up learning we can only rely on ourselves. That asking for help is a weakness, that needing support is dangerous, because many of us at some point or another did ask for that help. We did reach out. We did try to be our authentic selves, and we were turned down. We were rejected. We were criticized. We were judged. So we learned from a very early age that we could only rely on ourselves. And independence becomes survival, right? Hyper independence becomes your identity. And yes, independence is powerful. It is. And it's necessary in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to a relationship. You want to maintain a certain level of independence and autonomy. But when it becomes a wall to keep people out, it turns into isolation. We are social creatures. We thrive in connection. True intimacy requires interdependence. It requires mutual support. It requires vulnerability and leaning on each other for us to actually be able to fully express ourselves authentically. Radical independence, to me, sounds sexy, but radical interdependence is where love lives. Now, I want to be clear about something. Interdependence is not the same as dependency or toxic dependency or an unhealthy level of dependency, because I know there are a lot of people who will probably think that dependency is a negative thing. And to a certain degree, it can be, depending on how dependent you are on others or external validations or your environment in order to actually feel like a whole, valuable, fulfilled human being or a person. But interdependency is necessary. So what I want you to do is I want you to reflect for a moment. Which masks resonates with you the most today, right? Is it the mask of perfection? Is it masculinity? Is it confidence? Is it independence? Maybe it's all of them in different seasons of your life, or maybe it's a completely different one that I did not mention here, but I want you to take some time to really reflect on this and to think about it and to ask yourself, what is this mask costing you? What relationships did it prevent you from building? What opportunities did it block? What love did it keep you from receiving? Those are all incredibly important questions to ask yourself. So then the question becomes, how do we start to take off these masks? How do we finally remove them and free ourselves from this prison that we've created for ourselves that was unintentional, that we didn't really mean to do? It just kind of happened over a period of time, right? It was gradual. And here's what I talk to my clients about, and here's what I teach my clients. The first one, and usually the one that I always start with, because you're going to see this again and again in my videos, is self-reflection and awareness. Start noticing when you're masking, right? Who you are with, what you're feeling, what you are afraid of in those moments. That's crucial for you to start to really unpack this, and journaling is very powerful here. Write down your thoughts, honestly, without judgment. Awareness is the first step to transformation. The second thing here is embrace vulnerability. Start small. I know it's easier said than done, but start small. Share something true with a friend you trust. Let yourself be seen, even if it's just for a moment. Vulnerability is like a muscle, right? The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Like anything else. The third thing here is seek authentic connections. Surround yourself with people who want the real you, not the curated persona that you have created in order to survive. So friends, partners, coaches, communities, people who look at you and say, thank you for being you. If you don't know where to find this community, start with your closest LGBTQ plus center. Start with a sports league, right? A gay sports league. Try Bumble Friends or event apps that show you up and coming events for LGBTQ plus individuals, or start with a coach. Work one-on-one with, for example, somebody like myself, and I work with gay and bisexual men all the time, to start to practice that vulnerability so that you actually have the opportunity to connect with somebody on a deeper level when the opportunity presents itself. The fourth thing is practice self-compassion. Treat yourself the way that you would treat your best friend. And I'm sure you've probably heard this catchphrase before, or you've heard this phrase before of, would you treat your friend this way, the way that you think about yourself? And when you mess up, when you feel afraid, when you feel small, remind yourself, you're human. You're allowed to be imperfect. That's what makes you lovable. No, and I know that this is hard, and I know that it's harder to kind of put into practice, but the more consistent you are with it, the easier it's going to get and the better it's going to feel. And trust me, I can be completely transparent and honest with you if we are talking about vulnerability here and tell you I struggle with this on the daily. It's so still one of the things that I'm constantly working on, even as a self-esteem and a dating coach. I have that very negative voice in my head that makes me doubt myself all the time. And it's constant work. And sometimes I just kind of lay down and let it do its thing. But I can also acknowledge and say, I'm willing to try to work through it. The fifth thing here is seek professional support. Whether it's a coach, whether it's a therapist, a counselor who specializes in LGBTQ plus experiences, professional guidance can help you peel back these layers safely, confidently, and sustainably, right? A lot of my clients have broken through the mental and the emotional barriers simply by admitting they needed help and by taking action. So if you feel stuck, reach out. Let's have a conversation. It's a safe space for you to be able to explore what it means for you to actually be vulnerable. And here's what I want you to walk away with today. If anything else, this is what I want you to walk away with. Masks may keep you safe, but they also keep you from being truly seen. So when you start taking off your masks one by one, layer by layer, you begin to experience life fully. You attract relationships that are rooted in truth. You create deeper friendships. You show up boldly in your career and you finally start living instead of performing, because the world doesn't need another masked version of you. It needs you for who you are. I hope you heard that. I hope you allowed yourself to accept that message. And if today's episode resonated with you, share it. Share it with a friend, with someone who you feel could use the message today. And if you are ready to dive deeper into removing the mask and living unapologetically as yourself, book a free discovery call with me. The link, I will put it in the bio, so you can utilize that to connect with me, and we can have a conversation about some of your struggles and how we can move past these blocks and these barriers that you have that are keeping you from actually being able to experience life authentically, and connect on a deeper level. So until next time, keep your heart open, your standards high, and remember, the most powerful thing you can ever be is yourself.